All right. Well, let's just go ahead and get started anyways. So, all right. Let's just start with like a basic introduction. Who are you and what's your background?
Yeah, so for those that don't know me, I'm amends. I've been doing the DeFi stuff in BSC since probably February, January of this year. My background in real life is like business development, so like consulting and like small business growth, whether that's like marketing or like web app creation. So kind of like a Swiss Army knife type type role. And no, I just kind of fell in love with the people. I think Binance Smart Chain is doing the job of Ethereum to kind of bring DeFi to everyone. So to me, I just stuck around, made great friends, and started working with a few different projects like Blizzard, Safer Moon, just helping out, and then finally wanted to branch out and just kind of bring some of my uh, expertise to create something cool. And here we are.
Like, you do have indeed that little Swiss Army knife sort of background, which kind of makes perfect for developing projects on BSC. And I totally agree that BSC has kind of done, it was able to first do the job that Ethereum promised to do because it made things fast and it made things affordable. And it's just, when you have fast and affordable, it's easy to build. How can you really build when something is expensive and slow? It's kind of a hindrance to building a community that's going to be successful, in my opinion. So, yeah.
100% agree.
So how did you get the idea for this game? Could you just like tell us a little bit about the game first, I suppose? Like, what is it? How does it work? What's the point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Carl is based on so the origin story is this. It's very simple, and you guys might laugh, but um, for those of you who know Spitting Nichols, he's the owner of Blizzard. He sent me a DM one day that had a tweet from someone named D Hoff, who's the creator of Vine. He's a crazy creative dude who's just incredible, and he basically deployed this contract on Ethereum called Wagmigachi. And the Wagmi normally stands for like we're all gonna make it, but he said we all gotta manage it. So it's basically kind of what Carl is, but with some different parameters. And all you had to do was spend gas, and the point was just to keep it alive. And I looked through the code, and I was like, this is super cool. And Nichols is just like, yeah, steal this idea. And so I was like, this kind of fits perfect with like the Revenge Cat thing that I already had kind of going. And so I started working with the contract immediately. Like it wasn't like the contract needed some work, and I enhanced it, added features, changed the stats and stuff. And eventually I started thinking like, well, how do I turn this into like, something more than a novelty? And I told him about it, and I said, well, people are going to spend B&B to play with the pet, and people can just claim whatever, like it's like pools, and you can claim it. And he's like, no, have it by cake, and they can claim the cake yields because then it's sustainable forever. And so I started getting out my whiteboard and just kind of just kept going and drafting ideas, and eventually I was like, wow, this is actually really cool because it creates a lot of this like interesting game theory that we'll get into in a bit. But I was like, man, this is going to be great. And when I started doing the front end work, and I saw Carl there, and I had my artist friend come up with all these different pieces for the page, I was just like floored. I was like, this is really cool. Like I would like spend money on this. Like I knew that people were going to love it. So it's just been like a passion thing for a while. But yeah, that's the origin story. Way less cool than a lot of origin stories, but that's how Carl came to be.
Well, I think it's still a pretty cool origin story. And I certainly appreciate how so many things in this space just seem to, I don't know, come up organically or but just by like weird circumstance when you're just talking with a friend because, we have this like strange little community here and ideas just pop up when you're just talking to people or you're like in a group chat and it's just like, wow, I wonder what would happen if we created this game where everybody has to manage a cat. you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's pretty funny how that sort of stuff generally happens. So now that we know a little bit about how this game works, and I suppose like, that your inspiration was just it happened, what are some strategic elements to consider when you're playing the game? Because I know that you've mentioned before, in your group that there is some interesting game theory elements that go on when you're considering gameplay.
For sure. So let's start with kind of the way the game works. So Carl has stats that need to be kept up. So it goes from 0 to 100, and if any stat gets to zero, he'll die. And we'll get into what that means later. But when you interact with him, it costs 0.015 BNB, or like $6 right now, and it gives you something called a love token. Um, the love token is kind of unique because what we see in a lot of projects out there is, the devs provide initial liquidity to a token, everyone buys it, it goes way up, then it crashes. And I'm sure everyone here in RugDoc is familiar with most farms that use those kinds of tokenomics. So I really wanted to do something different and make love like not something you could just go and buy. Like you have to play with Carl to get it. And interestingly enough, if Carl dies, you can no longer interact with him. So love emissions are become capped. So the way it works is once you have your love tokens, you're going to need 10 of them first, and you'll go and you'll mint one of the caretaker NFTs. It's kind of like your caretaker badge. And once you have that, you can start to claim some of the BNB from other caretakers. And when you claim that BNB, it does a few things. Um, you get a little reward for claiming it to reimburse you for gas and just a bonus, and then it takes the rest of the accumulated BNB rewards and it buys cake and it puts it into a cake vault. That's Carl's cake. Right now, there's just a little under 500 cake that's farming, and so you spend a love to do that. You've got to burn a love token to claim any rewards. So the cake is farming on Pancake Swap, just single staking, and a few times a day, you'll see it get up to like $5 or $6, and you can basically spend a love token and cash that out. But if you're thinking what I thought when I first made it is, well, if Carl lives, it's eventually going to be like maybe 10,000 cake in there, and it's going to be making hundreds of dollars a day. So this token that I effectively bought for 0.015 BNB, $6, I could cash it out for 10, $20 worth of yields sometime in the future. But it's a collaborative game, meaning that Carl isn't unique to you. It's everyone. So everyone else is doing the same things, thinking the same ideas, and maybe they're going to cash out their love at $12 instead of 10, or maybe $8. So you're all kind of playing against each other to see who's going to claim the rewards when, and who's going to take care of them when, and what happens overnight. And the collaboration, I think, is the fun part, that it's both collaborative and that everyone has to manage and help Carl, but competitive in that once it gets time to start, cashing out your love tokens for rewards, you're playing against other people to kind of see who's going to, like a game of chicken almost. So that's kind of the basics of the game theory. It goes a lot deeper, but that's the simple part of it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I know the overnights are always like slightly stressful because I'm just like, ugh, if I go to sleep and Carl
Oh,
goes
I
down
wake
for
up,
5.
2 a.m., 6 a.m. I'm on like a multi-sleep schedule now to check on them.
Yeah, exactly. I can imagine. Um, I guess saying, walking through some of these elements to consider, couldn't someone just write a bot to harvest all of the cake B&B and just like ruin this game?
For sure they could, but there's a few interesting things with that, right? Like the bot isn't a person; he has to set some thresholds. So the bot's going to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to buy the love token for this price, and then I'm going to sell it for when it's this much profit. But users could just come along and say, cool, well the bot is selling its love, like harvesting the yields at $14. I'm just going to harvest it at 13.99. Basically, front run the bot. So the only like exposure that Carl has to a bot is a bot that could like keep him topped up, like could mint the love tokens. But I've worked with DeFi Debauchery and a few others on writing. If that were to ever happen, we would come up with a way to stop that. And I've also kind of warned people in my chat that things could be done to kind of prevent that. I don't want to get too far into it because it might give people some ideas, but um, basically,
Yeah, that's always the risk.
yeah, so there's some users now that have 200 or 300 loves, so they could probably front run the bot profitably for quite a while to kind of discourage that. So we have some like gentle and some less gentle ways that we could stop that in the future because once the harvest and yields get really big, there is like a risk of people kind of like gaming it like that. But as long as it's not ruining the game, I'm free to just let people have fun.
That's pretty interesting. So we already got our first questions in the chat from Limitless. Why is it called Revenge Cat, and why is the cat named Carl?
Okay, so the first question, Revenge Cat. So here's the story behind the original Revenge Cat. A couple months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months at this point, I don't know. Time works weird these days. KuCoin Chain came out and they released their main net and all that, and uh, a lot of the gems people were on KuCoin, and we were like kind of just finding projects to ape blindly, just like have fun. Like we weren't, doing anything serious. But there was a project called KuCat that Ogle and a few others got some like a tip that it was like vetted or a good project. But we got in and people started playing whale games with the price on these low market cap KuCoin. It was just a lot of fun, like just craziness. But it rugged, and I was like, oh man, I
Ugh.
was so pissed because first of all, it was one of the first times I'd been rugged. But the second of all, it was vetted, and third of all, it was a cat project. It was called KuCat, and with all these other like dog tokens and stuff, I was so stoked to be in this like vetted cat coin. And when it rugged, I was like, oh man, I was so sad. So I was like, you know what? I immediately, like within a couple hours of that happening, I publicly went and forked their code, had it reviewed to make sure there wasn't anything shady, because it was just a liquidity pool rug. And I just
Got it. One of
redeployed, I
those.
redeployed it on KuCoin Chain, called it Revenge Cat, and said, all right, you guys have fun, go ape. This is safe. It's run by me, and I burned the liquidity. So it was like, basically I was like, we're gonna get revenge on people and go have fun, and they could have made their money and had fun with us, but now we're just gonna do it. So Revenge Cat was originally a token on KuCoin Chain, but I haven't done much because KuCoin Chain's really slow right now. But if it ever picks up, I'd definitely revisit the token on there. But yeah, that's kind of the origins. And then the more sad question is that yes, Carl is based on a real cat. It is my one of my fiance's cats that unfortunately got injured and then ran away.
Oh, that
So
is sad.
yeah, they never came back unfortunately, and um, I don't want to get too personal in it, but she still has a lot of like bad dreams and stuff, and so I was like, you know what, everyone's going to take care of Carl in spirit, and I wanted to kind of, and he was a great cat as well, just like fat great cat. So I was like, we're going to name it Carl. Everyone's going to take care of him, and it's going to be forever on the
Yeah, now I want Carl to die even less now that he has
internet.
this like
I know.
sad personal backstory. It's like, oh my gosh, if Carl dies, this is just doubly traumatizing to your poor
It,
like fiance.
yeah, it definitely is. That's why I'm waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's fair. I would be too if I was in your position. Absolutely. Can't let Carl die, must protect. Um, so yeah, what do you hope to accomplish with this little experimental game? Like, what are your personal goals other than, like save Carl and not make your fiance sad?
Well, I think one of my personal goals with the project is to provide something fun and new for people to do on Binance. Like no one can deny that Binance has been kind of boring recently, and I wanted people. I wanted a project that would appeal to everyone. Like you've got kind of these like game theory nerds, you've got people who might be new to DeFi and looking for something fun. And it's also a project that you're not just going to get like pump and dump. Like you're not going to buy a token and then have that bad experience where it goes to zero. Like the love token is essentially like a derivative of two great tokens, BNB and Cake, because its value is dependent on those, and it generally goes up. So it's not a project that you can ape. You can't just go in and buy 5,000 love tokens and become a whale. If you want to be a whale, you have to sit there and grind for weeks to get that many tokens, and constantly check back in and play the game. So my goal is first to make a project that I enjoy and I have fun and I get emotionally invested in, but also to kind of provide that, project that is going to be fun for others, to be, safe, where people can just have fun, create a community, and really just kind of like educate people about stuff that I'm kind of nerdy about, which is like the game theory and tokenomics and so forth. So it's just good fun, really. I'm not, Carl he doesn't really make like the dev or anyone like a ton of money, but eventually people who do play the game will be very well off with the love token if Cake and BNB do well. So it's not something that I'm going to retire on, but it's totally fun. So that's the priority for me.
Yeah, I think I really like that. So not only is it just kind of a unique Tamagotchi-like game with some interesting things to think about, but I really appreciate the fact that the native token that you win in the game, you can't really cheat your way into it, and it's not really traded. And so since it's not really traded, there's no way to really backfire on users. You have all of these other games and projects, and at the end of the day, they can all just get dumped or get crashed, or, something can just happen because it's a tradable token. But because this is really not a tradable token, and that is not the purpose of love. The purpose of love is to be able to get these cake rewards from the staking pool. It's kind of, it's a very fair, level playing field for everyone who decides to play.
Basically, when you have a token, like a farm token or something that has such a variable price based on liquidity, your chat room can often just get, it can devolve into like Win Moon and, like, why is it going down? And like, this project sucks, win marketing. But with Carl, like, it's kind of in this interesting spot where, like, well, there is no price to begin with. So your chat's just full of cat memes. Like, there's no real like issues where you got to like moderate too much. So that's a big perk and another reason why I set it up that way. But it's kind of, I don't want to say like safer than like a yield farm or anything, but it's definitely more newbie friendly. I feel like doing it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, no, I very much, like I said, I do appreciate those elements into that. So I guess now that we've talked a little bit about it, um, what are some of the tokenomics that are involved in this game? So could you just like explain a little bit
Yeah,
more about, I mean, we have some of the gist about how we're interested in getting love for cake staking, but are there other tokenomic elements to consider here?
yeah. So the love token is essentially like a derivative of BNB and Cake, because what you do is when you trade your BNB in for love, later on you can redeem it for either BNB or Cake. So what that does is essentially it gives you a way to have exposure to both assets at the same time. Because if down the road, BNB takes off and Cake doesn't, you can still redeem, love tokens in the future for BNB. So it creates this kind of like interesting asset class where you're buying these tokens and having fun with the game, but they're also kind of an interesting investment tool that we don't really have a lot of on BSC. Like there's not really like an index fund or like a kind of like a way to do that easily, to like wrap one token in a few others. So it definitely has kind of taken on a life of its own. And it's, I don't want to say it's like, it only goes up and it has a rising price floor, because you guys might be familiar with that from Blizzard. But if Cake goes, stays the same or goes up, the yields will stay the same or go up. And because of the way Carl works, he constantly requires more Cake. So eventually, these love tokens that you buy for $5 or $6 each, you'll be able to redeem them in the future, for maybe $12, maybe $20, or if everyone's sleeping, maybe $100. It really depends on where the market's at. But yeah, I have a lot of fun thinking about the like mechanics of the token, and kind of it kind of forces you into a hold as well, because you don't really like immediately redeem it. So with Cake, you might see it go up to $30 and get tempted to sell, but if it's wrapped in love tokens, you kind of have to cash it out slowly, and it kind of like creates that best practice scenario for you. So I could probably just like ramble about this for like days, but I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I can tell. And I mean, like, this game does have a lot of very intriguing elements to think about. It seems like such a simple game when you first look at it. And then the more that I've been able to interact with it, at first I just saw it and I was just like, oh, cool, like weird little Tamagotchi game that maybe will pay me money one day. And the more that I've played, I'm like, no, actually, there's a couple more things to think about when I'm playing, and there's certainly some strategy that may not be relevant just
Well,
yet, but are going to be more
yeah,
relevant in the future as like rewards increase and the value of love changes. Um,
yeah, I was speaking about that last night in chat where there might be a scenario where technically Carl has a function that only I can call to revive him, but I've spoken with chat that where I would do governance and let the love token holders decide. Because if you acquire so much love, and let's say there's, 10,000, 50,000 cake in there, and you have 500, 1,000 love, whatever, you might say, well, if I vote no here and Carl doesn't get revived or whatever, then I can just like be the last one man standing and cash out all of these rewards and like, stop the emissions. So there's like things like you said that have yet to play out that are interesting to consider. Like you may actually at one point be as a giant love holder be kind of hoping Carl does, lose interest and aren't kind of like farming him or even let him die. Heaven forbid, but it's just very, very, complex.
yeah, well, hopefully no one decides that their giant stack of love is more important than our beautiful, loved Carl.
I sure hope not.
Of course. So now that we've talked a little bit more about some of these token elements, I know that in order to be like a caretaker and reap these cake staking rewards and the B&B stash rewards, I have to hold the NFT, like the Carl NFT. As someone who just like has minted their Carl NFT, is it only one image of Carl? What can I do with my NFT? Like what's the point? Like are there going to be future options that we're going to have available to us with this Carl NFT?
So the Carl NFT was a game theory decision because I wanted people to not just be able to show up to the site, mint one love, and then run away with a bunch of cake. I wanted it to be the caretakers, the people who have invested their time into interacting with the game. So originally it was just designed as a like a gatekeeping type mechanic. But I know people have emotional attachment to NFTs. So what I'll say is there is no reason in the future that if there was a Carl Jr. or any other type of addition to the game extension that it would not also use that same NFT. And because if there's a limited supply, you're eventually you won't be able to get those. It's going to take a while to mint all of them just because of the way the emissions work, and it takes 10 love that you have to burn, but they may become very valuable one day on the secondary market as you'll need that to interact with the game. So, if there's, 100,000 cake farming making thousands and thousands of dollars a day, only the people that own those NFTs, 10,000 caretakers, will ever be able to spend their tokens because you need to have that NFT. Like if you get rid of your NFT and you still have love, you still can't redeem. You need to have that in your wallet. So there's it did definitely evolve into some interesting game mechanics. And yes, I have some ideas and plans that may be interesting in the future. But that's kind of how it works now.
Sure. Um, so we have a question from the chat regarding these. Will cat loot correlate with My Revenge Cat more than just a PFP drawing of Carl wearing the cat loots? So I guess can you tell us a little bit more about cat loots because I did indeed mint some cat loots and I don't really know what to do with them. And yeah, will cat loot correlate to something more than just a drawing of Carl and his cat loot?
For 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 sure. So the way that the cat loot's going to work is I basically was designing an add-on to the game. I call it the War Campaign because it's basically the story of Revenge Cat has these two sides: the Purgatory Cats, Purr, Purgatory, of course, and the Celestial Cats, and they're kind of at war. And the way it goes is they found this mysterious egg, and it looks like it's kind of could hatch into anything. So eventually, what's going to happen is you'll need to pick a side, and you'll kind of be vying for control of this egg that may hatch into who knows what. The loot is a way to increase your efficiency in that game. So, like right now, for example, with Carl, let's say, one interaction is one love. Well, in this new campaign, one interaction may be, two victory tokens or whatever if you have a cat loot. Or if you have 10 cat loots, it might be two victory tokens plus your one. So it's basically going to be a volume thing where the number of cat loots you have are going to increase your rewards and efficiency in this kind of next thing that I'm working on. The profile pick thing is awesome though. I think that like literally if it was just like the loot token and it gives you this profile pick in the future, that would be like super good enough for me to just go mint a ton of them. If this were like not my project, but I definitely love loot. Like I think that loot is such a cool concept and idea. I'm working on putting it into a game where your stats will come into play too. So after the war campaign is over, my kind of next step that I'm still whiteboarding is that your loot's actual like equipment will come into play and give you some enhancements, and maybe even some consequences depending on what you have. So I'm definitely going to be building on that platform, and the cat loot will become very, very important. I also wanted to get the cat loot out early, because I know that Pancake Swap's marketplace is coming up, and people like to kind of speculate on these things. And 10% of all of the earnings from cat loot are being given straight to Carl. So it's also a way to kind of bootstrap Carl's cake and kind of get him to those breakpoints faster, where he's going to be earning tons and tons of rewards. So it's kind of a all part of a larger picture for sure.
Yeah, as it is, I'm already really impressed that you guys are almost at like what 500 cake in Carl's stash right now in the staking
Yeah,
pool.
I think it's been just over 2 weeks. So
That's
he's making
amazing.
about 1,000 cake a month, give or take.
Yeah. Huh. So that's definitely impressive. Um, so we had another question in the chat that kind of relates to what you just talked about. It's from Limitless. Could you talk a little bit about features and quality of life improvements on taking care of Carl? And then are there plans to perhaps do mini games when we want to feed, play with him, etc.? Which it sounds like goes into these like much more than just mini games, these whole campaigns regarding eggs and celestial cats.
Yeah. I've been improving things on the site, as we go. But I have done some stuff like I worked with DeFi Debauchery to get like a Telegram bot that like will spam the chat basically if he's below 50 on a stat, which we may need to adjust. So basically, it's been kind of the community driving like, hey, you should do this, or hey, it'd be nice to see this, or like a dashboard, or can you track the price of historical price of love, or it's I've been collecting all of that and kind of working to get more onto the site. So I think that it's kind of just being a community driven thing right now. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff that I'm working on to kind of get more visibility on the game theory elements. And most of it's been like I wrote a Medium post all about love and stuff like that. And I've been working on the war campaign because it's just me doing all of the Solidity contracts and the front end. So I've definitely been staying busy and still trying to get the quality of life stuff done too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, like I said earlier, I'll wake up and I'll just be like, oh my gosh, where's Carl? Like, where are his stats at? So it's definitely like a touch stressful around
I did
here.
not use MetaMask Mobile before I started this project. But now I'm
Yep.
like at dinner, like, oh, let me check on my cat.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I've actually done the same exact thing. I've been like, I wonder how Carl's doing, and I'm also never a MetaMask mobile user like ever because it just doesn't always work well. And I was definitely like, gonna connect, use MetaMask mobile and check on Carl. Um, hmm. So, how has the game overall been received?
I think that it's been received exactly the way I hoped, which is people just spamming, cat gifs, whether they're happy, sad. I've got these ones of people just making it rain on cats that are just great.
I've
Because like I
seen
was
those. They
saying,
are awesome.
yes, like holy crap. My goal with the project, like I said, was just for good fun and community. That's exactly the way it's been received. Like no one is like stressed about, oh, it's not growing fast enough, or like I hate this. It's all been positive, and it's just driving me to like keep working on it and improve it for people. So I could not be happier about the reception.
That's really fantastic. At what point do you believe the game will be profitable for most people?
So I've done the math, and if cat loot does not mint like sell out, it would take about 19 months for the emissions of love to uh, so for the rewards to profit you given the emissions of love, so that every love is minted is in the money. So like let's say if cake and BNB stay the same price, I go and pay $6 for a love token, and on average I can cash it out for $7. That process will take 19 months. However, with Catloot kind of bootstrapping his cake, it would be a lot less. So my math has been anywhere from 9 to 12 months for every single love created to be profitable. That doesn't mean in the short term that you can't, make profit. There's been plenty of people who've cashed out love at a profits, right now. But for him to become essentially deflationary, where it would literally be profitable to mint every love from him and cash it out, we're looking at around a year, which is a crazy long time in DeFi to become deflationary. But I'll say PancakeSwap hasn't done it yet, so
Yeah. Yep. Nope. That's a very long time in DeFi land, that's for sure. But, we'll see. I hope that we wind up getting to the Carl's deflationary point. It's certainly a really interesting experiment. And so if nothing more than just like the psychological and like economic incentive side of things, I'm really curious to just
it
see how everything
it's a
plays
long
out.
game. Yeah,
It
it's a
is.
very long game because what I've noticed is that like most farms, they're like a flash in the pan. They're here for a month or two, they're not profitable, and they either like get abandoned or they rug. And so I was like, how do I make a game that's like almost like a Stockholm syndrome where people like they don't want all their cake to go away, so they have to come back and interact with the project because they have these love tokens that will have a appreciative value in the future. So it was like it's kind of like Carl is almost forced to be relevant because of the like what is it called, the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you have all this money that you spent and you're expecting a return, and if Carl gets low, you're like, oh crap, I don't want to lose my investment in these love tokens. I better take care of Carl. So I'm hoping that plays out into Carl lasting and being relevant that long. And I'm certainly going to support it as long as people are interested in keeping him alive for sure.
Yeah, I know I'll occasionally, like when I've played the game, that I will occasionally be profitable now and say, I spend my 0.015 BNB to feed him. And then, perhaps there's like $7 worth of rewards that I can work with. So, like I'll have made like a very slim profit for the one feed, but it is interesting. It is basically Stockholm syndrome because we're all just spending money without any imminent large reward, which is kind of like antithetical to like most of what DeFi is and why we're here, because
Yeah,
it just
I'm
kind of
ready to 100x overnight, but that's not how Carl works.
yeah, exactly. So it's just kind of funny because we're just kind of trapped by this not very profitable cat due to just, our love and weird psychological attachments to a digital cat and not wanting it to, suffer.
Yep.
Yep, that's definitely pretty funny. Well, I think that's pretty much like all the game related AMA questions that I have, but we can certainly open up the chat to just any questions. And if you want to like stick around, we can just have some more conversation about whatever the
Sure.
chat decides to like bring up. Um,
Yeah, I'm down to
so
stick around and chat. I love this stuff.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. I know like we are both in a similar time zone, so that's always nice. Our summer's been very dry here. I'm
Oh,
certainly looking
nice.
forward to fall because there's just been like rampant fires all this summer.
Yeah, it's actually been a lot. I live in the desert, and it's been a lot
Oh
more
wow.
wet this year than usual. So it's been awesome. Had such a great year.
All right, we have a question in the chat that basically says, would it be possible to ever cash out the cake?
So right now, this is when I deployed the contracts, I set it up to where the cake could be recovered if need be. But there's a point, probably when Carl's a month or two old, that I'm going to just totally renounce ownership of the vault. So I don't want the cake to ever be cashed out, because I think it's Carl's cake, and if he dies, it dies with him. The contracts have been good. There's been no major issues. Everything I encountered was on the front end. So once the game is really going, we're going to make it to where you can't get the cake, like the initial cake. Um, and I may take a vote on that and see what people think, because I'm kind of curious to know if people want that cake to be like able to be moved to another pet, or what they're thinking. But my personal opinion is that the cake should die with Carl. Like, it should not be able to be moved. But yeah, I'm gonna let the community decide exactly how they want that to play out.
Yeah, I suspect that's, that would be something that I would want to vote on. I personally feel similar to you that, like, if we lose those cake rewards and Carl dies, the reward should die with Carl. But perhaps if Carl had a Carl Jr., my
Yeah, right.
feelings might change.
He would want to pass on some of his rewards or something. So yeah, that's something that I'm kind of still exploring. The Carl. So you said there was another question there. Yes. So the ownership of the Carl contract is separate from the vault. So I'm not going to relinquish ownership of Carl, because he does have that one function I put in there to revive him if the community ever thought there was a good reason. So, for example, when you feed Carl, it changes his stats. So, like, I made them kind of like realistic. So, like, if you feed him, he gets dirty. So, like, feeding him reduces his cleanliness by 3. So there is a really like unfortunate situation where if he was super low on multiple stats and you kind of did it in the wrong order, you could accidentally kill him. So I want there to be the option to kind of undo people's like mistakes and misunderstandings if they weren't malicious. To kind of like make sure the game remains fun and fair, and things like that. So that's why like I'm going to leave that up to the community to decide. It basically I need that for governance.
Yeah, actually, I'm really curious from my own knowledge, what what stats impact other stats? Because that is certainly like a concern that I've had. If I
Yeah,
feed him in the wrong order, if he was very low, what would kill him?
yeah. So the way I set it up is cleanliness doesn't impact anything. So if he's low on everything, start with cleanliness, like clean him first, and then kind of see where he's at. And then I believe next is uh, feeding him impacts the most. So don't do that first. I would say clean, and then I think sleeping makes him hungry. So clean, sleep, and then feed, and then play would be the order. I think I put that in the docs. If not, it needs to be in there. But yeah, there is a good
Okay.
order to do it in.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, I literally wrote that down just in case I'm ever in that situation.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
But it's only if he's like single digits. If he's double digits, it's fine. If he's single digits, like below 5 on any stat, definitely like ask in chat, and we'll get it handled. But I'm not gonna let
Yeah.
him get there in the short term. Like I'm pretty much camping him if he ever gets in the red. So no stress there.
I think you've also have a pretty, I think we also have a pretty solid, even though your community is small, a fairly solid small community who is like devoted to this cat. And so I've certainly seen people who are just like, oh, they just threw more at him. Like, we're not gonna let Carl get low today.
Oh yeah, I'll shame people in chat. I'll put like a sad cat gif and just be like, hey guys, what's going on?
Oh
You
no.
gonna you gonna let him suffer? Like I'll do. I got a little bit of put the waterworks on people.
Yeah, yeah, that works. That works on people like me. I'm definitely a sucker for that sort of motivation. It's like, oh
Got
no, the digital
I
cat is
have a
hungry and sad. We're letting him be hungry and sad.
I've got a whole like collection of sad cat stickers. Like I'll put them in chat here. I've got some, the sad
Oh
cat who has
no.
one fry left.
Oh no.
Let's see.
That's
Yeah,
such
I've
a
got
pitiful looking cat. Oh, wet cat.
I've got
Oh no.
it's good sticker packs. But yeah, it's that like I said, that's the fun part of the project is really just like the community and then sharing all the funny, stickers because there's some chats out there that will just ban you for posting like, tons of stickers or gifts and things like that. So I definitely wanted our chat to be way more laid back and fun. And I think that's
Yeah.
another reason why I really like RugDoc too, is because like the community and chat, is so good. And it's also so useful and helpful. So I will say that like I definitely like the same vibe.
Aw, thanks. We try. We really do. We try to create, a pretty fun, interesting environment as well as, actually be useful. It's a weird balance to hit to be able to provide the services in, a fairly serious manner because we are dealing with like scams and losing money and other more sensitive topics, but also, be able to post McDonald's memes.
Exactly.
Yep. So let's see. I don't think I have any further questions. Um, yeah.
Yeah, anyone in chat want to throw something at me?
Let's find out. Oh, that's a very cute sticker. Well, I'm not sure anybody else has further questions, but I mean, I suppose we could like stay around and like, oh, maybe someone does, but we could stay around and answer questions in the chat and,
Yeah, for sure.
feel free to post many more adorable gifts. We do
The
have one
chance
more
of love.
question. Some love stacks.
Yeah, the stacks thing is like a buddy of mine. Some of you might know him from Blizzard Alteran. He took these like minor contracts, which are super degen, and he's like, "Hey, can you help me build this like front end for it?" And I was like, "Sure." And they're kind of the same like fun, like prisoner's dilemma type game, but yeah, super super degen stuff. But I don't think you can do it with love because it's like there's not a lot of it out there. Like it just wouldn't. And I don't want it to divide either. Like I want them to be whole numbers. If someone makes like a fractional love and like transfers it to two accounts, I'll be sad.
How much love is there? Like, what is your cap? And like,
So I
what's your
think right
emissions and stuff like
now,
that?
I kind of did the like rough math. I think it's somewhere around like 108 a day. Let me go look here. Basically, there's no cap. I mean, it's basically the cap is if Carl dies, it's like it stops because that's the only way to mint them. So Carl, it's kind of funny for those listening. Carl owns the love contract, like the token. So he's like a master chef. He's a fair. He makes love and he's a fair cat. Whatever uh, funny stuff that you might know from the contract. He is the only thing that can mint it. So when I made the love contract, I started with zero. I didn't mint any. There's no like hidden supply that I have. It's all Carl. And Carl, when you interact with him, he mints one, from the Coinbase wallet from 0x000 into your wallet. So if he's dead, it actually checks on every single function if he's dead, and if he is, he can't mint the tokens, so it just caps. So it's kind of an interesting take on a master chef, and honestly, I didn't even think about that until I was submitting everything to RugDoc, and it's like post your master chef, and I was like, well, technically Carl's a master chef, I guess.
Carl is the master chef. That's pretty funny. Yeah, we've been having our own, just like adapting our request formats as we grow because we are starting to cover NFTs and we are starting to cover games and we are starting to cover tokens and all these other things that are just not traditional yield farms. And so sometimes we get some pretty funny like mishaps like that. It's like, well, what is the master chef? What do you guys want me to input? And we're just like, oh, we actually need to think about this one. Like we didn't consider this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I was like, well, Carl has like five contracts, and I guess here's all of them. Just look at it.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's definitely been funny to try and just like scale up and change our like how we review and how we list for different elements in DeFi.
Yeah, and I think that the days of like just hundreds and hundreds of new like pancake swap clones is kind of coming to an end.
I'm really
Like
not that
people,
sad about that.
yeah, I'm not either. I think that I I also think so. There's pros and cons. I think that there's this uh kind of vibe that started where people are like, don't hold farm tokens, don't hold farm tokens. So projects that are actually, trying to build something like a Dino Swap or something like legitimate Pancake Swap clones often get, pump and dumped or manipulated, or people don't trust it because there's this advice that's been drilled into people. Because at the end of the day, holding a farm token is kind of like it's kind of like the team's, if you believe in the project and believe in the team, you hold the native token. So I think that like the bad um, experience people have had with tons of clones and otherwise terrible projects is hurting the real ones, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm happy it's coming to an end.
Yeah, exactly. It was always a little sad because I'd made some of my best gains in these native token plays early on when, it suddenly became a lot more risky and it started to circulate like, oh, don't hold native tokens. And it's like, well, native tokens are a risky move, but it's not necessarily a bad move. It just depends. You just have to understand the risks, but they can be very profitable.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously you need people to go and make liquidity. So like it
Oh,
just kind of
100%.
shot the whole. Yeah, I think that advice, while it was good and good intentioned, I think it kind of shot the whole pancake swap clone in the foot, where it's
Yep.
harder to make money on those now.
Yeah, definitely is. But it is paving a lot more room for things that are more unique and new and have more layers to them because we're not just throwing out these like goose fork farms, pancake fork farms. Now we have these games like yours that are interesting and y- do incentivize holding a native token, and the goal is not a pump and dump, or you can't even pump and dump and stuff like that.
Yeah. And honestly, I have all of these art assets for something called Yarn Swap. I was going to make like a Carl themed. This is a long time ago when the token when we were on KuCoin. I was going to make like a cat themed like farm. But then like the more I talk to people about it, they're like, here's what's going to happen. Like people are going to see that it's you. They're going to trust it. They're going to ape in. And they're going to pump and dump it. And then your chat's going to like people who are pissed. And I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. I hate that. So I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Hmm. Any ideas on how to reach more cat lovers on BSC or how the community can help?
That's really, really tough. Yeah. I think that like everyone on BSC has got to like at least a little bit like cats. But getting out of the echo chamber of like the couple big BSC rooms is kind of tough right now. That's, you know, not just for our project, it's kind of everyone's because, after you go to the places that are where people are looking for this kind of stuff, like gems, and the other groups like that, there's not a whole lot of places that will just let you come in and chill, even if you're a good project, because bad projects get chilled. So it's kind of tough. I don't have any like wisdom for that off the top of my head, but I'm if you want to come into the chat and drop good ideas, if anyone here has good ideas, I'm totally open.
Yeah, it is hard. I know when I've seen more successful campaigns, um, generally it's from like Reddit because you can get a lot of like hype and interesting stuff off of Reddit. But yeah, unfortunately, the community has kind of again shot itself in the foot with these like large show groups. They were a great way to find new projects, but they're also a great way to just, get scams to scam people. So people are a little wary about it.
Yeah, and I also think that like Carl is not the kind of project that does well with those things. Like you can't shill Carl because when you when you get on there and you're like, wait, so I spend money and I get what now? I
You
get I
spend
get this
money and you get guilted.
yeah, I get a token that maybe I can cash out for a profit if I'm patient. I have to come back and I'm making a couple bucks. Like I can't just buy 10,000 of it.
Nope.
So I think that like putting it on Reddit and like the crypto moonshots, it's not a moonshot kind of project, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? And this is a little alpha, but like I'm trying to make the next thing like cat loot and the war campaign, the next game, to be a little bit more apeable, like to give people more ability to put more money in. Because I think that for the community to grow, there has to be that kind of like somewhat of an ability to do that. I'm still not going to create liquidity for anything. It's all going to be you putting your tokens in there voluntarily for a token that has some pretty apparent or less apparent rewards, and keeping it like that. But I want it to not be capped like just by time, like how Carl is, so that people can have a little bit, of more investment if they want, but still keep it fun. And it doesn't like game it to where they have some crazy advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I have one final question, but unless again chat pops up again. What do you personally think the future of DeFi looks like?
Um, I think it's going to turn into something like the financial part of it, where you have like these apps like Robinhood, creating their own DeFi platforms, um, where a token is going to be regulated like a security. It's hard to deny that like most of what we see should be regulated like securities in the DeFi space right now. So I think you're going to see like the regulation come in to take care of those, and you're going to see the core of DeFi kind of shift to how can I make a project that's not like a security and still has like the DeFi ethos and things like that. I think that 10%, 20% APR is going to be like fantastic 10 years from now. Like people are going to be stoked about that still.
It's still
I
fantastic now. So it's so
Yeah.
funny. We've been so spoiled with these like absolute degen APRs that we don't really realize how good even 10 or 20% APR is. And it's so funny. I've been showing more people DeFi in real life because I'm trying to do some outreach. And as I've been teaching people who are complete noobs to crypto and absolutely have never even like conceived of DeFi before, how these things work. And I'll usually just like the first thing I'll show them is usually like pancake swap because it's just like basic and it's simple. And I'll be like, all right, so like let's go ahead and look at some like USDC staking pairs and it'll be for like 9%. And I'll be like, ooh, these are terrible. And people are just like, wait, what? 9%? That's amazing.
Better than the stock market? No way.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, wait,
That's
what?
right.
It
That's a fake. Like
guarantees
that's a scam.
9%? I'm like, yeah, it guarantees you will get 9% back.
I know, right? I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I don't do a whole lot. All my cake is sitting in beefy, like just single stake auto compound. Like I'm super boring. I don't really do any crazy like farm like degen stuff, like finding new stuff. And honestly, I'm the problem that I'm having in my DeFi experience right now is that I work on projects so much that my money just sits around. Like I think I have like a bunch of just stables just sitting in like 7 or 8% like in alpaca or something. Like I'm just like I don't
Same.
have time to figure it out.
Yep, same. I used to have so much more involvement, and I've just gotten too busy that I'll have things sitting in the same farms for like weeks and weeks, and I've just kind of given up and gone to alpaca as well, actually.
Yeah, just I honestly, I've just been lending. I haven't even done like the leverage stable pairs or anything. Like that's how little time I have. So it's
Same. Nope, I haven't even touched leveraged either, 'cause I'm just like, this sounds like I have to actually think about this before I do it, and I don't have time to think about this before I do it.
yeah. And I will say that speaking of alpaca, they're probably my favorite like project like that in any space. I really like their brand and I really like what they're doing. Alpaca's super cool.
Oh, same. I absolutely love Alpaca. They're great. Their technology is solid. Their platform is established. They're, large, safe. Um, yep, I have a reasonable amount of my stuff just boring staked in Alpaca, but it's easy, it's simple, and, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to move it. I do
Yep.
try and still like keep up on some degen farms, but what's been happening is I'll do really well for a couple days when the farm is new and I'm still like really excited, motivated, and making time in my schedule to make sure I'm like farming. But then like by day 3, my schedule just catches up to me and next thing you know, it's like 3 weeks later and I'm making like no APR anymore on whatever I have
Yeah.
staked.
And I think that's why like Beefy is so big because it's like kind of a set it and forget it thing, and they're trustworthy, established, and so forth. And I think that for most people, that's all you really need to do well in DeFi is just don't overthink it. Go get the good coins and put them somewhere, and have a little stack set aside for some degen plays. And that's really the way to do it. I think I think a lot of people get obsessed with like taking like all of their money and trying to like 10x it, and really you'll do so much better just taking the majority of it and putting it in cake or anything like that, and then take a 10% of it and go like just ape into things that people recommend you that you trust, or things that get good reviews on RugDoc and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funny thing is people seem to still, a lot of people that I've talked to still think that just like holding cake is like a very degen move. And I'm like, it's really not because
Oh
cake is
man,
so
that's funny.
large. Yeah, exactly. Like things like cake and sushi and, all of these huge, large protocol tokens are really not that risky. I hold plenty of cake because I do get higher APR on it. And really, all cake does is it just tracks the market.
So yeah,
There's
it's so
really,
funny you say that. I had a ton of B&B in Alpaca, and I was talking to Nichols about it, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because B&B is good." He's like, "Well, cake is just like leveraged B&B, like it's the same thing." He's like, "Cake just follows B&B, but you can get better APRs. So why are you not buying cake and just staking it?" And I was like, "Wait, that's actually big brain. Like I'm gonna go do that
yes,
right now."
that is exactly the conclusion I came to. And watch now, like we're going to get a billion people like aping into cake now. Um,
Yes, pump my cake stack.
but but it's true. Like it's so true. It's what I thought about months ago, and I was just like, wait a second. Looking at these charts, all cake is doing is it's just tracking BNB. And if I already am cool with holding BNB, why wouldn't I be cool with holding cake? Except cake, because it's perceived as being riskier, gives me even higher APR. This is great.
Yeah.
So
And that's
yeah,
the reason that Carl uses cake too, is because one, cake is fun. Like it's, I love like the idea of the brand, but cake is also good APRs. It's good enough just to dish up, just a couple profitable love tokens a day really early on. So cake was the easy choice for that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all I got on my end. I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us for like a whole hour. It was a lot
Yeah,
of
for
fun.
sure.
And I mean, I absolutely loved hearing more about Carl and getting my own questions answered on my Revenge Cat because, I did indeed have my own questions since I have been psychologically guilted into feeding this dang cat.
Yep.
It really did. It hit like every single weakness that I have. It provides guilt. It's a game like a Tamagotchi. I think I'm still just haunted from my Tamagotchis as a child that I just like let die because I was a kid and I would like, just ignore them for a day and then the next thing you know, I'd have like my Tamagotchi graveyard increased.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I'm the
yep,
same way.
yep. Well, yeah, thanks for chatting with us. And I am excited to see what happens with Carl and how the community does with taking care of Carl. And if we can make it to these giant stacks of cake, in the future, hopefully, if, we get enough people guilted into caring for Carl and, spending money with minimal reward right now, and to see if we actually wind up having to front run bots and think a lot of these interesting patterns through when we suddenly have, $500 of staking rewards available to us every day.
Exactly. I know the community is going to be strong, and I really appreciate it, everyone, helping take care of them, and just being cool and dropping your funniest cat, memes in chat. I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
See ya. Have a good day.